Well, howdy. Would you look at all these here blackberries? The thing that you would have trouble imagining is that 4 years ago, this spot that I was standing in was just a bare grass field. No rocks, no berry plants to eat, just grass. Now grass would be kind of a boring monoculture. You know why it's just all grass out there? Well, for decades, cows munched on this grass, and when you mow off something, whether it's cows or mechanically, it favors a tough kind of thing, a plant that can handle regular mowing. Things like grass, all the sensitive plants, they die away, and that leaves you with just like grass, like you see behind me. Now I had this here pile of rock dumped. I thought I could build with this beautiful rock, make a house out of it or something like that. Well, the thing that I noticed is it sprung up with raspberries, and I can't get no raspberries to grow out in the grass worth nothing. And if they do grow, they ain't beautiful like this. These are happy raspberries. Now, the question is, why are the raspberries growing in the rocks and not out in the grass? Let me give you a little clue. Chirp, 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 chirp. Chirp, 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 chirp. That's right, birds. Birds planted most of these raspberries. Let me give you a little story. One day a happy bird was flying in the sky, and it saw something it wanted to eat. It wanted to eat a raspberry. So it lands on the raspberry, it eats it. Maybe it ate it way back there in that woods. Flies down over here, and it says, I want to take a little rest. I've been flying long enough, I've eaten, I need a rest. So it flies along looking for a high place to land, up in a tree or down on a nice rock. They don't want to be on the ground where the predators might get them. So she flies along, she lands on this high rock over here. She sings a little song. Chirpy, 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 chirpy. And then she has a little bathroom break. And she deposits a few seeds. These be well fertilized seeds. And those seeds, a rain comes along, washes the seed into the ground. The seed germinates. Before you know it, you got a wee little plant coming up out of the ground, and it be raspberry. Now, so the rocks were a place that the birds wanted to land. So they planted them here. But the next question is, why is the raspberry doing so awesome out here in a big old pile of rocks when I've planted plenty of them out there in the grass? They kind of die, wither, don't do much. They're just hanging out there. Why is that? I heard a fellow one time say that that rocks, you could mulch your ground with rocks if that's all you had. What's the purpose of mulch? Keep the ground moist. Keep the sun from drying it out. So these rocks are acting like mulch, keeping the moisture in there. The rocks are acting like trellises. These bushes are hanging on the rocks rather than breaking down onto the ground, so the rocks hold them up. The rocks also be minerals. The rain runs over them, minerals go into the ground, go into the plant. Last thing they do is they absorb a lot of heat, like a solar kind of effect. And then the night they're giving off heat, which helps keep the plant growing better. So this works in a lot of ways. So I also decided to plant a couple figs and kiwis here in the rocks to try to make it warmer, and I thought the rocks might work good for that. I also planted some strawberries, put some rocks around my strawberries. I don't know how it's going to work. It's going to work okay this year. We'll show you those too. I got to get back to my raspberry picking, but every raspberry has its thorns. just like every cowboy. Now here I imported a little soil in around these big rocks. These rocks are going to soak in the sunlight, keep it just a little bit warmer down here for this fig tree. This fig tree likes tropical type stuff, or at least southern, and it's doing okay. Over here we have a tiny little kiwi. It'll climb up over these rocks just like the raspberries were. And over here we've got another little fig right next to it, a whole bunch of nice wineberries. So yeah, we're hoping to create a little microclimate. Down here in the strawberry patch, trying to figure out if the rock method helped strawberries at all. I'm not rightly sure. Like a lot of things in life, there's a lot of factors to look at. Now this year we've had an awful lot of rain. You think rain would be good, but we had almost a week straight of solid rain, not much sunshine. We had a whole lot of rot and mold set in. But mostly wanted to talk about the rocks, how I placed them. I used them here in the strawberries for the first time in a little section of the patch to see if they worked like they were working for the raspberries. I'm not sure. I am pretty sure it should keep the runners. You know, strawberries spread a lot like raspberries in that the strawberry sends out a long thing, a runner, and at the end of that runner it has a baby strawberry. Now if you have a rock there, it can't take root, so that'd be one less for you to root out of the ground because the rock is taking up the space. Let me show you these runners. A few of the strawberries I got, not so many, but here you can see the big rocks that I've sat down in here, sort of flat rocks, sort of occupying a lot of the space. Now you see out this way I have no rocks, and in the closer we're on some rocks. Now the runners I was talking about, you can see over here coming off of this plant, you have this long stringy thing that called runner, and right here. Now this little plant's trying to put down roots to start a new plant. Now if it was over here, it could grow a new plant, but here it can't. So that'd be one less that I have to rip off like this. Become kind of like weeds. You get too many of them. You know, for example, don't really need that one there. I could pull that one out. And so the rock should give me a little less weeding to do, which is always a good thing. Well, hello there, children. What? How have you been? What are you doing in that place that you call school? Yeah, not much. Well, think. You do something there. Dig deep. What do you do? What's this? Oh, you brought me a rock. Boy, we got plenty of rocks here in our world. What's so special? They're asking you to design a rock to inspire people. How do you make it inspire? Maybe, what do you think a rock would say to people to inspire them if they could talk? I imagine a rock would sit around with his rock buddies and they would say things like, "Oh, this century was amazing. So much happened. So much change." The other would be like, "Yes, you wouldn't believe it. A piece of moss grew on me." And the other would say, "Oh, and I had 2 lichens." This seems very boring. Maybe it's more about what you have to say to inspire people than what the rock would say. Give me some time. I will think on it and get back to you. Oh, hey! Hi! Turns out the floor is a pretty good place to work. I've never tried it before. You should
less restrictive, you know? Well, let me show you what I come up with. It's pretty neat stuff. I like painting rocks. And I thought to myself, what is inspiring? I thought, good words from the good book. You can put whatever you want on yours to inspire others. Here's a mandala-like pattern on it. And on the back, John 3:16 starts right here. For God so loved the world that you probably know the rest, but I wrote it in a spiral pattern. Looks very nice. Then I did a second one, and it's also a mandala type pattern. Reminds me of sunflowers that burn, it grows. And then over here, it's faith without works is dead. Yes, sort of a summary of some good words. And then I did a different kind, and I like this one the best. You ready? Oh my, look at that one. That's right, more natural. And I like natural because this is going to be put out along a sidewalk or in a park. People come along, and they see, oh, pretty rock. But I don't want it to jump out like a sore thummy. Bright red, pink, purples. I want it to be natural colors. See how I use nice, beautiful black on that side and a little bit of green ink on this side. Yes. This one says, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Nice. So, do you want to know how I did this? Yes. Well, let's do it.
So before you work on your final rock, it's a good idea to doodle. We all know what doodling is. It's just sort of developing a sense of your own style, and there's no real substitution for it. Sure, you could copy somebody else's piece. It would be nice, but it's not really your own piece. And for doodling, it's just kind of absent-mindedly doing things until you find that you like something that's happening. And the more you doodle, the more you find something that you like. Here I did curlicues, here I did little zigzaggies. Yeah, you might have just anything, and it starts to develop almost a vocabulary or style of styles within it, and it allows you to sort of expand on it. So here's an example of this is the result of several prints and attempts in my doodles. So lots of nice things there. Notice that the patterns are usually about 50% paint and 50% background. You don't want to just have little thin lines. The thick and the thins here is what really makes it dynamic. So once you've doodled and you're happy with your idea, take your rock and decide which side is up. This side was kind of wobbly. I thought the other side's flat. I think this level here looks good. So with this one, with my doodle, I took a template and I traced over different shapes and sizes of ovals, getting something that looks like this. Now what I'm going to do is with liquid clay, which is called slip, that is this, and you can see the consistency of the slip is like this, whatever that is. It's a little runnier than pancake batter, if you've ever made pancakes, but you don't want it thick and chunky, you don't want it too runny. It helps to have thick enough that you can paint it down. You want a nice barrier of clay between the rock and the ink that's coming. So if you have to paint that a couple times or whatever, but I like to use a very detailed brush, so I like detail. Okay, while you're painting your rock, make sure that you don't put your finger on the wet clay, or you smudge it up just like I did right here. Now, once all the clay is dried on very nicely, we're ready to stain the rock with permanent ink,
like this. I'm trying to use natural colors like greens or blues, or blacks, browns, or dull yellow, that orange, these kind of things. Now, I'm going normally in this last rock, I did one side and I did it all black, and the brown of the rock showed through, and on the back I did it all green. On this one, I'm going to try it a little different. I'm going to try to get the green in the circles and the gold in between. So let's see how this goes. You have to paint a little bit more carefully, obviously, if you have two colors you're putting on. The clay will act as a shield for much of it, so we just have to make sure we keep it on the clay or the portion of the rock. Now, if I get this green on the rock portions that I don't want to be green, obviously it's green. Now, this is acting like a stain. It is soaking into the rock. Now, if you want your stain you want the color to be lighter, you can water this down just like you would with watercolor, and you'll get a more subtle pattern, less obvious. Okay, less obvious. But in any case, intense or subtle, it shall be nice. You can go over it a couple times if you want it to really soak in the ink. Of course, this has to be permanent ink. Don't want any water soluble. So let's say that part is done. Now I'm going to move over to this. Not entirely sure how this will use, but this is iridescent, and it's kind of a metallic. I'm going to paint this over the remainder of the areas, and I'm hoping that the clay will wash off with the metallic over it. I'm not as sure because it is more thick and a little less stain, a little more paint. So this could be a big bummer, but we're going to try it out. Now, after you've painted over everything you want to paint, let this dry for at least an hour, ideally maybe more like a day, 8 hours, before we do the next step. I had put gold over here, I scrubbed it off, and it doesn't work. The gold is not much like ink, more like paint. So don't use the gold iridescent for this step. So what you do, dip your brush in here a little bit, get it a little bit wet. You want to use a bristly brush, just damp, not soaking wet. Come over here and start to scrub on the clay, and you're going to see that it slowly breaks the clay away and reveals the natural color of the stone beneath. Keep your brush somewhat clean. Keep going over it. Here's an easy place to see it happen around these pieces. Don't overdo it, just do it till you have the clay portion cleaned off. I'm going to keep going here. It's a little bit slower here in the red where the ink, but see how you're getting a natural little bit of clay here yet. I want to work on that. Scrubby, 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 scrubby. Maybe dab out a little bit to dry, but do not do a lot of serious scrubbing. And you can see this dim pattern on here. It looks very natural. Might be a little bit dim for my liking, but after it dries out, it'll be nice. Okay, so here is my dried rock. You can see the pattern turned out very nice where I didn't have the nasty gold. And I'm ready to write on it. This time we are going to use the iridescent or gold ink because it's going to really show up a whole lot better than before. So generally I end up writing around the outside of the rock and working my way in. It depends on how long your writing is. Very detailed little brush, and carefully just write in your message.
I actually think that writing the message is maybe one of the harder things to be neat on. There we have the first word, seek. Okay, let's pretend that I have this totally dry and have all of it written on here. And we're now ready to, it could be finished at this step, but we could make the rock shiny if we want. This is a very natural rock, no varnish. This one has one coat of varnish, just a little sparkle to it. I kind of like that. This one has all 4 or 5 coats of varnish, maybe 2 coats on this one. So how we varnish, you'll have to take your can of varnish. You could use spray varnish if you have. Go around here till this opens up. Oh, there we go. And I like this little disposable foam brush. Just get a little bit of varnish on the end of that. Not too crazy with it. Bring it over here to your rock. And let that, whoo, that brings out the pattern. Brings it out a little bit. That will look real nice. It's better to have several thin coats than one thick one that runs all over the place. So that's the gist of it. And we would do the whole rock, of course. Get any excess out on here. And then if you had mineral spirits or gasoline, you could clean your brush out with that. I do not have that. So these are kind of disposable little foam brushes, but I can make them work for a while just by dabbing it out like this till it's pretty much dry.
Now it's your turn. Make rocks that will paint so pretty that people pick them up and, oh, I could take this home with me. Just like, and put it beside the flowers that I brought along. And oh, when they go to the seashore, they pick up seashells and they take them home too. So pretty, yeah. Just like Bernie showed you, rocks, good food comes from rocks. And as I'm showing you, rocks can talk. You can make them talk. Rock, talk. Rock, talk. Rock to talk. The rocky talk, talk. Rock the talk. Down the block, rocks talk. On the block, rocks talk. In the flock, a rock, around the clock. Talk, rock, talk. Rock, the rock, talk, rock. I'm sorry. Please, I don't. That's your kind of music, not mine.